So how indeed do we survive and thrive? Well, I'm currently mid-draft of something which I hope may be useful to some people. The first thing is stay sane. As I've shared before, when I did the stuff on COVID, I thought I was just offering an alternate perspective based on the facts, but then people started saying, thank you for keeping me sane. And over time, obviously it was heartwarming, and over time I've realized that is actually a key goal. It's pretty damn depressing when you see the government acting as it does, and to see the MSM lying through their teeth, and to have 80 to 90% of the population just soaking it up. It can wear you down. It certainly wore me down. So the first thing is to stay sane. The second thing is that by having some understanding of what the West is doing to itself, we can start to look to protect our families, and at third level to protect our business, our earning, our wealth, whatever we have, because we are going to need to pay the bills. If we're not doing a very good job of that at the moment, well, we definitely want to, should we say, increase our capacity there, because the bills are going to keep coming. Unless you can grow all your own food and provide your own electricity, the bills will keep coming. The fourth level is operating at the level of community, and being able to basically trust and rely on people around you. And the fifth level is evolving society, actually bypassing government as it is today, render unto Caesar, as I put it, bypassing the government of today and moving and becoming, in a sense, independent of the government to the extent we can. That's not exactly easy, but there's until they do indeed hold us down, chip us and all the rest of it, we do have independent minds. We can make our own decisions, and we can be informed by what we're seeing, and we can set up allegiances, alliances, work in cooperation with others to the extent it's possible. One of the problems there is I like a lot of people, perhaps tend to be somewhat loners. We're all used to working as individuals. We buy a home on our own, or with our partner. We take the kids to school as a family unit. We really don't think in terms of community, and we don't lean on each other to be mutually useful and supporting. And I think that's something that would be advantageous as we move forward. The one thing that I'll cover very briefly is it even feasible to imagine that we can win? This is actually a very important question. Neil McCoy Ward was very honest when he said, I really don't see how we get out of this. He's excellent on steps to take, and obviously other people have their community and common law and all the rest of it, all of which and survivalist, all of which are highly relevant, if they're to your taste and if you choose to implement them. But yeah, this is a non-trivial issue as to how we get out of this. So as a mathematician, if you can find one solution, even if that solution is not practical in the real world, it at least tells you that solutions are possible, and that gives us some hope for the future. So let me give you one possible solution. What if tax became voluntary? What if you only paid in tax what you chose to? Now, we know perfectly well that if you tried that, you'd have the IRS or HMRC on you like a ton of bricks, and you'd be off to jail or fined or whatever. Tax dodging, tax avoiding. But what if it became something that they could not ignore? So let's just run through a scenario where, in coffee chats, you just ask people, it's like, just out of curiosity, if you had the choice, how much tax would you actually pay? And, some people might be up in arms. Oh, well, we need to fund the NHS. Well, okay, that's then you can decide how much you want to give to the NHS. It's entirely up to you. But how much would you actually pay? And You can just ask that question. And if it gets people thinking as to the basis of taxation, how much we should pay and whatever, then who gets to decide what is appropriate? You could basically get to a point where the town council, the governor of the state, they actually can only be voted in if they start to respect and recognize this minority. And so they offer you a buffet. You know, this is how much we'd like to put towards education. This is what we'd like to do for health. This is what we'd like to do, and this is what what we'd like to do for local government. Now, if a state, especially in the United States, if a state went that way, it would start to become a very difficult thing again for the federal government to ignore. They might accuse you of undermining democracy. Well, they're going to say whatever they're going to say, aren't they? But if it becomes the point where they are threatened in their positions, firstly, obviously, they'll turn you, a bit like the truckers' convoy, they'll turn you into enemies. But in due course, you could see a world where the politicians had to pay lip service and then actually had to pay actual service to the idea that yes, well, okay, this is what we'd like to spend. We'll tell you, based on what you give us, that's what we will actually spend and whatever. All of a sudden, wars are expensive. The pandemic was expensive. All of a sudden, the politicians start to be obliged to pay more attention to you than they do to their corporate sponsors, because without tax income, there is no government and there's nothing to give to the corporate sponsors. So, yeah, is that feasible? Is it plausible? Well, it's certainly far-fetched. But the fact is that if tax was voluntary, just that one change, it would completely change the Roman system that we have lived under for 2,000 years and which probably predated Rome. That an elite tell you what the agenda is, tell you what you need to pay and enforce it strictly, while they go off and do their conquering and wars and whatever they choose, and of course they themselves are never under threat. So I'll just leave it at that there is at least one scenario which would completely disarm, almost literally, the government ability to impose agendas on you, because they would have to become supplicants, because you would now be free to not fund their initiatives. So, may not be feasible, may not be practical, but it's something to bear in mind that it is not an impossibility to get beyond this, even without alien intervention, divine intervention, or whatever. So, I will leave it at that, and with the key thought that, in summary, that from now on I would suggest your prime focus should not be the details, the minutiae of day-to-day events, but should be on how you can restructure your life to protect yourself, your sanity, your mental health, your ability to earn and what have you, protect your family, protect your business, and start to operate more actively within your community to create a sense of community, even if it's only people that agree with you, and to have in mind at least the awareness that there could be a grand strategy that, if implemented, could go viral, could be useful, and could get us past this. I don't look to change the government by appealing to the government. I think that's pretty much demonstrated to be a waste of time. But I do believe that we can survive and thrive and bypass the current society and potentially evolve to a more desirable one. There you go.